Rise up. It's time for another episode of Spartegrity, your podcast source for inspiration and motivation to get you through your Spartan body transformation. Here now is your host, the Spartan Doctore, champion of growth.
It is a glorious day to train and grow. I'm Ryan Masters, the Spartan Doctore, certified strength and conditioning specialist, here to provide you with motivation and inspiration as you journey through your Spartan body transformation. Welcome to another episode of Spartegrity, broadcast directly to you from Trifection Studios. If you find these episodes helpful, please be sure to leave a review on iTunes and subscribe so I know to produce more of them for you. Today we're continuing our discussion of the Spartan Body Blueprint, which teaches you how to sculpt a ripped Spartan body in 5 hours or less a week. And if you haven't already, you can download that for free at spartegrity.com. We are looking at the soul component of the Modern Spartan Trifection, which is mind, body, and soul. And these are the three areas that you have to make changes in your life if the Spartan physique and presence is what you're looking to accomplish. Now, on the soul part, we talked about the Modern Spartan Ethos, and we're looking at today the number one trait. And this is really one of the most important factors for building a Spartan body, and even beyond fitness, as you'll see, going beyond fitness, just making positive transformations in your life. And it's often what I call the invisible obstacle that keeps most guys from getting a ripped Spartan body, and that is a lack of Spartegrity. So what is Spartegrity? Well, let's start here. We'll read it. A modern Spartan is 100% honest with himself and his shortcomings because he truly desires growth. He knows his personal worth is unshakable and completely independent of his physical stature, earnings, and current situation. Only through this separation is he able to be open and receive guidance on how to grow. And so what happens when guys are operating from a lack of Spartegrity is they're not being honest with themselves. And when you're not honest with yourself, you are unable to get the proper guidance or advice that you need to make the positive changes in your life. Again, this goes well beyond just training. But it's like going to a doctor if you have a stomach ache and then telling him, oh, my head hurts, and that's where the problem is. Well, whatever prescription or treatment he provides you is not going to alleviate the stomach pain because you're not being honest with the doctor, so you're not able to get the proper treatment. And this happens all the time. Now there's a reason for this, and there's a genuine reason for it. So it's not like guys are out there just purposely lying to themselves because for no good reason. There is an underlying cause, and that's what we're going to dive into here so that you can root it out and fix it. And the reason that someone is very often not honest with themselves is because he is failing to separate his personal worth from whatever the situation is. And in the fitness space, this is huge, right? This is all you hear all day, every day, is that if you're not in shape, if you're not ripped, if you're not jacked, then girls aren't going to like you, you're not going to be successful, and you just might as well jump off a cliff. That may sound a little rough, but that is essentially the message that the media is just bombarding you with. And so naturally, a lot of guys then, when they look in the mirror and they don't see an example of someone who's super fit, well, they get down and they beat up on themselves because they haven't separated their personal worth from their physical state. And I'm sure as your doctore, I am the only one who's going to tell you that your shape or lack thereof has absolutely no bearing on your worth as a human being. This may sound a little cheesy or hokey, but this is the honest truth, and this is the deep down stuff that you've got to root out and rewire and fix if you want a total transformation. So whether you're a fat guy, skinny guy, average guy, muscular guy, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're still a worthwhile human being. And your worth has, again, no bearing on your physical state. And that's what, and so what happens is, because a lot of guys don't operate from a place of Spartegrity, and they've linked their physical worth to something like their personal worth to something like their physical state and health. Now they start not getting the advice they need, or ignoring it, because for them to admit that they are not following good advice, or they're not in good shape, is for them to have to admit that they are less of a person, because they've tied those two together. And that's what happens. And so guys will shut down and ignore advice and not look for advice, because to do that they'd have to admit to themselves, well, I'm out of shape, so therefore I'm not really a worthwhile guy at this point. And what I want you to take away is that you need to break that link, so that you can say, you know what, I may be out of shape and I'm an out of shape guy right now, but that has no bearing on who I am as a person. And as soon as you're able to say that from a place of authenticity and centeredness, your life's going to change, because now the door is open to receiving the guidance that you need to make any of the changes. And this, again, goes beyond just fitness. And so as an example, I've started, back in June, I started learning how to dance. Now, as a Spartan fitness trainer, I have 2 left feet. And I was pretty much like the Tin Man out there on the dance floor. I mean, I was awful. I was awful dancing. I didn't know what rhythm was. I have no musical background. But that's why I wanted to do it, because it was challenging and frustrating for me. And it would have been very easy to shoot myself in the foot by tying my self-worth to my dancing skill, right? So, but because I was able to, operate from a place of Spartegrity and say, well, how I dance has no bearing on my worth, I was able to learn much faster and progress a lot faster. So sure, I was awful at dancing when I started out, but that doesn't mean I was an awful person. And you may be awful at, who knows, it could be training, you could be awful at anything new that you're starting, but that doesn't mean that you're an awful person. And as soon as you're able to distance those two, your personal worth versus something you're doing, you are going to make major leaps and bounds in your progress. And again, this applies to things like social status, income, relationship status, you name it. Income's another big one. In fact, it's almost even bigger in the sense that with our culture, people naturally tie worth to income. So if some guy's making $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, if someone's not operating from a place of Spartegrity, and he looks at that and he's like, well, this guy is, that's when you hear all the kind of almost like jealousy stuff. It's like, oh, well, he just inherited it, or he's ripping off the poor, or etc. And the reason someone would be saying something like that is because they're not operating from Spartegrity, and so they're saying to themselves, well, he had to cheat or do something wrong in order to accomplish that income level. Because if the person operating from a lack of Spartegrity admitted that, well, he's just making more than me, and he has his value linked to the income, now he's got to say this person is better than me because he makes more money. See, because they're tied together. But as soon as you separate those two and say, well, you know what, whether someone's making more or less than me doesn't make them any more or less of a human being than myself, now the door is open and you're able to receive, both positive and negative feedback in terms of getting advice. So now instead of coming at this person from a place of jealousy, he's able to say, wow, what is he doing in his life that's a little bit different than what I'm doing in my life? I'm only making $50,000 a year right now, and this guy's making $100,000. I'm sure there's a thing or two, I could learn from him. And I'm open to learning from him because I'm not operating from a lack of Spartegrity and linking my worth, my personal worth and value as a human being, to my income, which is just silly. And it's just as silly to do that with fitness stuff. A lot of guys, again, they get super jealous when they see somebody in shape and like, oh, he's taking steroids, or he has hours and hours in the gym. They make all these excuses, and the reason they do that is because if they weren't, then they have to say to themselves, wow, this guy is in more shape than me. And then because they have linked their personal worth to their physical state, they're saying, wow, this guy is more in shape than me, and therefore he's a better man than me, right? But that's not true. That's only true in their mind because they've made the mistake of linking personal worth to physical state, and therefore they're not operating from a place of Spartegrity. So as soon as you can operate from a place of Spartegrity, you now open yourself up to getting advice from the guy who's in shape because he's already done it. So you say, wow, this guy's he's in really good shape. I wonder what he's doing differently than me. I'm not as in good shape right now. That doesn't mean, I'm not worth, I'm worth any less of a human than he is, but it certainly means that he's doing a couple things better than I am, so I could probably pick up some tips. Let me have a discussion. Let me learn from this guy. And when you're able to do that, and operate from operate in life from a place of Spartegrity, you really open the doors to rapid growth and improvement. And who doesn't want that, right? So if you're interested in learning more about the step-by-steps of building a lean Spartan body, be sure to check out SpartanRises.com. You can see more details there. And remember, no matter what happens in life, never retreat, never surrender, and keep moving forward.